Healing Past Trauma and Abuse Through Christ. This is my 7th video on this specific topic, and I haven't posted anything on this topic in a while. It's been a couple weeks, but that's because I really wanted to make sure that for this step, which was so important for me, I did it right. And I really kind of showed everything that I had to go through to get to the point where I could do what I needed to do and get to the point where I am right now, which is absolute, complete, and total forgiveness of the people who harmed me. So how do you do that? How do you forgive somebody who actually harmed you? And I'm not talking about somebody cut you off on the road, they told you your dress made you look fat, they stole your boyfriend, they took your job. Those things are hurtful, of course, but they're not the level of abuse and trauma, right? That's a whole different level. And if it's years long, like it was with me, it is deep rooted, right? It is really in there, and it's in there deep. So how do you get to the point where you can forgive that? Well, I'm going to tell you how I did it. And it was not easy, and it takes many, many steps. And the biggest thing for me was forgiving my mother. Like, I don't know why it was easier for me to forgive my father. And maybe it's because he died when I was like 17. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, that's easy. Pack that away because now he's gone. I mean, of course, it was not that easy, but that's a different series. So I'm going to focus on my mother with this because she was really the big thing, right? The thing that I just couldn't forgive was my mom. And she stayed in my life up until 18 years ago. And she continued to abuse and damage me during that time. And I didn't even see it. And when you're living in a situation like that, you're living in survival mode. You're constantly struggling just to get to the next day. And you don't even see how abnormal or unhealthy it is until you get out of it. So if you're somebody who is in an unhealthy, damaging relationship, I do encourage you to get out of it if you can, right? Because you cannot see it clearly for what it is until you're free of it. And it took years and years and years. I found out, so in addition to the abuse as a child, I found out that my mother was working with my husband's ex-wife and my brother and his wife, my sister-in-law, to try to get my husband to divorce me so that they could take the children. And I was like, I can't believe this is really actually happening. And, my husband didn't believe me at first either until I got my hands on their emails that actually showed this triangle of these people plotting on how to take me down and destroy me to get me to the lowest possible point that I could be at so they could take my children from me. So this is what I had to forgive. This is the level of damage, right? It was the abuse as a child and then it continued on into my adulthood life. So where did I go with that? Let's start. So I was praying with ladies at my church and God told me, it's time to forgive your mom. And I was like, oh, sure, you know what? I'll forgive her. I forgive her. It's easy. I can just think it in my head and that's it, right? That's all I have to do. And I was like, you need to tell her. God says you need to tell her that you forgive her. What? How am I going to do that? Because first of all, I live in Japan and she's in Texas. I think she's in Texas. I haven't spoken to her in 18 years. I don't know how to get a hold of her. She probably is not open to receiving a call from me anyway. So how do I do it? So I kept praying and I thought, all right, I'm going to do a video. I'm going to make a video and I'm going to send her this video. And that's what I did. So I went home, and again, I didn't want to do it. I was just being obedient to God. Sometimes He asks you to do things that you do not want to do, and you do not understand why, but later it becomes clear. And now I understand. Like right now I understand because I can look back and see it. But at that moment, I'm like, why do I have to tell her? Why do I have to interact with her at all? So I made the video. And the first video was, here's all of the things you did to me. Here's the lasting damage that caused, but I forgive you for all of those things. And I was like, yeah, finished. I'm done with the video. God's like, nope, that is not going to work. You need to redo that video. And God told me to keep it simple, to apologize. I'm like, what? I got to apologize. Keep it simple, apologize, and tell her that you forgive her. And so I redid the video. And that's exactly what I did. I said, it's been many, many years since you've heard from me. I just want to tell you that I'm sorry. I forgive you, and I'm going to be praying for you. And that was it. That was my video. And I sent it to my older brother. And my older brother is in Christ. And I think he had to have known of the abuse, but what are you going to do as a kid? And with my mother telling people I was crazy, I don't know what his stance is on it. And I kind of don't want to push it because it's his father. So if God feels like he needs to really understand it, then God will show him that. So I'm not talking about my brother, but I passed the video on to my brother. And, you know, his response before he even saw the video was to tell me, you know, Mom's facilities have declined and she can't really follow complex things. She's very childlike. So make sure that you start with an apology and that you keep it very simple. And I'm like, wow, God already told me that, right? There's no way she could have even understood the first video that I made. So I knew that this was God's hand. Absolutely, this was God's hand. And I told him, I'm like, yeah, I already did that. And so I gave him the video. And did he pass it along to her? I don't know. I don't know if he did. I hope that he did. I don't know if she saw it. I don't know how she reacted. I haven't heard anything from either of them about that. But I don't need to, because I did what God told me to do, which was to make the video and send it. And I was obedient. And you know, I just have to say that when you say words aloud, they take on a different level of power. They become more concrete and more real, and they become things that you can act on and that you can believe in and that you can do, right? So if you're bouncing these ideas around in your head, like, oh, I forgive her, I feel like I forgive him, oh, I can, you know, it's abstract. It's not exactly real. But the moment you speak the words aloud, it becomes different. And it did for me. It did for me. So I was able to, that was the first door. And this stage, right, this step of forgiveness, it's multiple steps. Like you do one thing and God's going to open another door and you're going to step through that door and he's going to open another door and you're going to step through that door and he's going to open another door. Because it took decades to get you where you're at. It's going to take a while to get you back. And it is a process. So for me, again, this is just my testimony, my story. It was a process and it was not something that was easy. It was not something that happened overnight. And it's something that I still pray about and deal with every day. So I did the first thing that God told me to do, which was to speak aloud the words that I forgave her. And I sent it to her. And the moment that I did that, he opened that next door for me. And that next door was, now you have to pray for her. And I'm like, I gotta pray good things are gonna happen to her. But that, you know, that's the next stage. And I'm gonna talk about that on my next video. So this one was just about the starting steps. How do you start to forgive somebody who has done so much damage to you? And for me, my first step, of course, was praying to God and taking it to God. And God told me to speak the words aloud. And I spoke the words aloud. And the words spoken aloud took on more power. And it made it real for me. And it made me think, I really can forgive her. And I didn't feel it at the time. And looking back at that video now, I'm like, wow, you could really tell I was not engaged in that video. I was saying these words that I probably really just didn't mean. But now I'm different. I'm in a different place. But I couldn't get here if I hadn't started there. So my first step, again, was to speak the words aloud that I forgave my mother. And to send it to her, whether she saw it or she didn't saw it. When you're forgiving people, you're not doing it for them. It may benefit them, right? Because somebody who has done these terrible things, they have to on some level know that they've done these terrible things. And to have somebody they've harmed come back and say, God has told me that I need to forgive you and I do forgive you. That's a powerful message and that could move them down the road toward Christ. So I think that they can benefit from your forgiveness, but that's not the reason that you do it. You do it for yourself. You do it to give that control to God and take it away from that person or those people, and you do it for your own peace, right? So, and you do it because the Bible tells you that you have to do it. So my first step was to speak aloud the words that I forgave my mother. And once I did that, the next door opened, and that was the praying. You got to pray for her. And I'll talk about that and a couple of other things. But the hardest step for me was that first one. And I did it. And you can do it. And anybody who's in a difficult situation, you just really have to give it all to God. He will be with you. He's never going to send you off to do something hard and send you alone. He's going to be with you every step of the way. And he's going to make sure that you get to that end point. And I'm at that end point and I'm so much happier. So, you know, I will be praying for everybody out there who is struggling, who is trying to recover from this kind of, you know, damaging situation, who may still be in a situation that is not good for them. I'll pray for you. I will pray for you. You cannot give up. Give it to God, and he's going to see you through to glory on the other end. God bless you.